Good morning. My name is Ethan. I am an educator for the Artesian Alliance, which is the Chehaw Park and Zoo, the Flint River Aquarium, and the Thronatiska Heritage Center here in Albany, Georgia. And today I'm going to talk to you guys about animals moving, specifically how they move, and even more specifically, one way that they move, which is saltation. And I am going to share my screen with you guys here. So saltation. What is saltation? Saltation or saltatory motion is the act of hopping, leaping, or jumping. So whenever I'm talking about animals using saltatory motion or animals using saltation, that's what I mean. I mean them jumping, leaping, hopping, all that fun stuff. Um, so there's not a whole lot of animals that use it as their main source of movement, but a lot of animals do use saltatory motion at some point for different things. So why would you want to use saltatory motion? Why would you want to leap or jump? Animals use it for a lot of different reasons. One is to climb, for instance. They might leap to climb up things. They could escape predators really quickly. So let's say that there's like a big jungle cat sneaking up on a deer, and it's crawling up, it's crawling up, it's crawling up, and the deer spots it. The deer's just gonna jump away and bound through the forest. Another reason why animals might leap to move is for longer strides, for speed. You can move really quickly if you're leaping like that. Some of the fastest land animals we have actually leap. Um, the rabbit, for instance, much smaller than a human, can move faster than a human because it primarily moves through leaping. Um, there's also going back to that deer example, another reason why it might be preferable for a creature to leap around instead of just walk is, have you ever been in a forest? There's a lot of underbrush, a lot of things to trip on. So leaping actually might give it a bit of an advantage in getting around in the forest. They're also less predictable if they're leaping. Like if you're running, we pretty much know which way you're going to be going. But if you're leaping, you're going to have it's going to be a lot harder to predict where exactly you're going to be going and where you're landing and all of that stuff. So a lot of animals actually use it for evasion, escaping predators. And predators also use it. There are a lot of examples of predators using saltation to hunt. What they'll do often is get really close to something and then they will pounce, they'll leap on it. You see it with mountain lions here in the United States. Leopards like to climb trees and wait and then pounce on whatever's beneath them. It's really common, and I'm sure you guys can think of plenty of examples. So now we're going to talk about some of the creatures that can leap. And let's start with one of my favorites, frogs. What I've got right in front of us here is a striped rocket frog. And I'm actually going to show you guys a real frog here in just a minute. But the striped rocket frog is a very, very cool frog because it can jump the furthest out of any creature if you go by size. So this little frog is only about 5 centimeters. It's like 2 inches long. It's 2.2 inches large. So they're really itty bitty, and they can leap 2 meters. So a little bit more, about 6.5 feet. They can literally hop. If I laid down on the ground, they could hop further than my entire body, which is absolutely crazy that these little guys can do that. And I actually did some math just a little bit before this. They can leap 79 inches, give or take. and they're only 2.2 inches long. So if I laid the average eighth grader out, which is about 62 inches long, and I gave them the ability to jump like this frog, you would be able to jump 62 yards, or from the very far end of the football field to a little bit further than half, which is absolutely nuts. That's a crazy distance that you could jump. That leap tall buildings in a single bound. You'd be Superman levels of jumping abilities there. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen here so that you guys can get a better look at a little animal friend that I brought. Get lid open. So I brought a very similar creature to what I just showed you, which was an Australian rocket frog. I've brought another frog from Australia. I have brought, being real movie today, I have brought a splendid tree frog. So get a good look at this guy here, my splendid tree frog friend. Splendid tree frogs are, as the name suggests, a type of tree frog. And this guy's really fun. Woo! Hopped right onto the screen there. These guys are tree frogs. They hang out in trees, as the name suggests, and they are splendid, also, as the name suggests. But they're real fat and pudgy, and they're green to help them with camouflage. They look a lot like leaves on a tree. Oh, and he's making his way up my hand now. And they are very well adapted to saltatory motion. So if you notice, oh, and he's peeing on me now too. If you notice, these guys have really, really long, powerful back legs. And they use these legs if they feel threatened. They will use these legs to leap. They will hop to try to get away from predators. They also might do it if they're looking for prey. So if they see something moving, frogs' visions are very heavily based off of movement. If they see something moving nearby, they might try to eat it, and they will stick their tongue out and grab it, but they also might leap to get it even closer to it as well. He's calmed down just a little bit now. So these frogs will hang out in trees, and sorry, he's just being real active. They'll hang out in trees and they'll wait until something really cool gets close by, and then they'll strike. And if something bigger than them comes by, they might hop away, leap away, just like this one did right at the computer screen just a little bit ago. I think maybe what happened was it saw itself and it thought, that looks like a tasty meal. I'm going to hop and try to get it. And right back in his cage. So that's where he's going to stay. Wow, that was fun. So splendid tree frogs, very cool frog. They can't hop quite as far as a Australian rocket frog, but as I said, nothing actually can if you want to go size for size. So those guys use it both as a means of escape and as a means of hunting. So let's look at another creature. That was a creature that doesn't always do saltatory motion. Let's look at another creature that does do exclusively saltatory motion. We've got a flea. Fleas rely on saltatory motion. I know they're kind of gross to look at, but they will land on something. They are a parasite, which means that they rely on other animals to get their nutrients. They will land on a creature and bite it, suck its blood a little bit, and then will leap away, or just to a different spot on the animal, bite and suck its blood. And if you notice, very similar to the frog, it's got these very, very strong, powerful back legs. Frogs have developed really strong, powerful back legs that work kind of like a spring to shoot them forward. Ticks and fleas also have that ability to jump and leap. And even though they are not very similar to each other, these creatures, they have still developed these characteristics that are very similar. And that is, it actually happens quite a whole lot in the animal world. You'll see different animals, completely different, developing similar structures because they're both attempting to do the same thing. They're both filling a very similar role. These fleas, very large back legs, help to propel them forward. It's exactly the same situation with the frog. Here is a great video of, we're going to take a look at another creature from Australia. It seems Australia seems to have a very large amount of saltatory creatures. This animal from Australia, you might have heard of before. It's a very, very common creature known as the kangaroo. And I have a video from our own zoo here that has a great example of saltatory motion. And there it goes. Let's watch it one more time to get an even closer look. So the kangaroo's legs, they function pretty much like a spring. They're just bouncing back and forth. That's because they've got very, very specially developed legs. If you notice, their leg seems really long, and their heel's actually all the way up here. So they will bounce over and over again. We're going to watch it one more time just because I really like it. So kangaroos use saltatory motion for their entire lives for movement. There's very few creatures that rely exclusively on saltatory motion, but kangaroos are one of them. And I actually have another video of a kangaroo. This one's not quite as energetic, but you can see they've got very small front legs, and so they rely entirely on their back legs for moving around, and they will do this if they're just trying to go short distances. They're still bouncing and leaping. It's very similar to a rabbit, actually, which is perfect because that is the second creature that I want to show you guys. So if you give me just 1 second here, I'm going to pull out a very good friend of mine who has been behaving pretty well so far, but we will see. And so the animal that I'm going to be pulling out is a rabbit, and they are a mammal. And so in these days and ages, COVID-19 affects mammals. And so in order to reduce any exposure that we possibly could, I have put on gloves, and I'm going to be wearing a mask for the next part. So our rabbit is named Bugs, and I am going to grab So this is Bugs. Bugs is a rabbit. Everybody say hi to Bugs. Bugs relies on saltatory motion to get around, very similar to that kangaroo that we talked about. Bugs has very, very strong back legs. I know Bugs. Nobody likes to be held up like this. But if you can see, he's got these really big back legs that help him to move forward. Now, Bugs is a very, very cool rabbit. And I'm actually going to, hey, relax, relax. Bugs, rabbits are very specialized creatures because they are prey for a lot of animals. A lot of animals would eat a rabbit if they got the chance to. And so they need to avoid predators in any way that they can. Better. few bugs. They need to avoid predators any way that they can. And so they have developed these ways to get away. If you've ever seen a rabbit try to run away from something, you'll notice they do a lot of hopping and bouncing and really, really quick short jumps, and they will zigzag as well. And so they utilize all of these strategies to get away from predators. They take advantage of all those things that I mentioned before, where rabbits utilize all that stuff. Like it makes them more unpredictable. Their saltatory motion, their jumping and leaping, it makes them move faster. It makes them do all kinds of stuff that helps them to avoid predators, and it makes it very difficult for a predator to catch them. Now, that's not the only defense strategy that rabbits use. They rely on their movement as a quick getaway, but if you notice, another quality that rabbits have are really, really big old ears. They got these really big ears that help them to hear, and they will listen around for anything that is coming. And if they hear something, they will then turn and use their big old eyes to try to spot it. And if their eyes and their ears see it, then they know that trouble's on the way. And so they will get themselves in a good stance to escape if they need to. They will face whatever direction they think is the best means of escape, usually towards something like a bramble bush or a briar patch or something. And they will hop and hop and hop as quickly as they can to this thing. And then they will utilize their hopping and their leaping to actually get further and further inside of it. Because you can actually you can get over things and under things and all kinds of stuff if you're hopping and leaping. It's actually a really great strategy for handling adverse terrain. So this is Bugs. He's also very, very cute. So I'm going to put Bugs back now. I think Bugs was very comfortable in there and didn't want to come out. So that was Bugs. And it seems like we've got a few questions here from the chat. One of the questions is, do kangaroos have to invest extra energy into jumping motion? Is it energetically expensive, or is this the case for any of these animals? So that's actually a very good question. Let's talk about energy for a minute. It takes us more energy to jump than just, say, to walk, but that is because we are not built necessarily for jumping. We're actually kind of built in such a way where we utilize our own gravity to move forward. Like we lean forward and then we basically just fall in a really, really specific way as we continue moving forward. And so our energy comes from keeping us moving forward and us staying balanced. Kangaroos and rabbits both they kind of use a slightly different strategy. So they keep a lot of their momentum moving forward because of their legs. Their legs are specially designed to work very similarly to a spring. They've got these real zigzaggy looking legs, and they will compress their legs and then extend their legs, and that's how they hop. And they will utilize the fact that they are hopping to press down and bounce and bounce and bounce. And try to keep as much of that energy as possible. Now, if we go back to the video from, the second video that we saw of the kangaroo, you might be able to see it's moving forward very slowly here. And you can see it's not really bouncing. But kangaroos have a lot of their weight in their back here. They've got very round bottoms is what they've got. So they've got a lot of weight in the back of their bodies. And so that helps them keep that center of balance as they're bouncing. Rabbits are very similar. They also have a lot of their weight near the backside. Because if they had their weight anywhere else, their specialized legs might not work as well. So I don't actually know how energetically expensive it is specifically, but they definitely are very well designed to not use a whole ton of extra energy if they can help it. Kangaroos won't hop like what you just saw there. They won't hop very much if they're just moving short distances. But if they're trying to get anywhere further than a short distance, they're going to hop their way to it. So I would think it probably has to do with distance for how energetically expensive something is. I also got a question that was, how far can a flea jump? Fleas can jump pretty far. I think they can jump several feet. It also, I think, depends on the flea species. Whenever I mentioned the rocket frog, I said that it could jump the furthest by any animal of its size. But I think that's specifically for vertebrates. I don't think they're counting invertebrates in there. And why are their back legs so much larger than their front legs is another question that I got. It's because their back legs are designed to just be really, really big springs. And so it actually helps if they're longer because you can actually store even more energy. If you ever had a class on levers and they tell you that you get a longer lever and it makes it easier to turn, a longer lever whenever you're working on a spring makes it easier for more energy to be transferred. So we're going to continue. We're now going to continue a little bit further. Hold on. So now we're going to talk about actually, we are going to talk a little bit about the sort of physics behind leaping, which is great because we just got a little bit into that with the questions here. So their powerful back legs work like springs, as I said a little bit ago. They're built like big old shock absorbers. So whenever an animal lands like a kangaroo, it will compress the spring and then spring it back up because of all of that energy. It's still there. It's just getting transferred back up. And so they will hop again and again and again until they're done. And then they will just sort of release that energy. It's exactly the same kind of thing as if you, say, used so you've got a stapler, right? And whenever you push down, it springs back up. That's because it's got a spring on the inside, just right there. Now, their legs function a lot like that little spring. So you've got the upper leg and the bottom leg, and it'll bounce. And the thing that's causing that spring is actually the same thing that's causing a spring in your step. If you're stepping and you you take a step forward, your heel, the balls of your feet will spring up into the muscles in your leg, and the muscles in your leg function like a big old lever, and they will spring it forward. Now, we have very small feet compared to a kangaroo or a rabbit. So our spring it's not as effective because the longer the lever, the more energy you're going to have. So I hope that answered the question. And I've actually got, as a sort of bonus here, I've got a video of a creature that also practices saltatory motion, but does it in a completely different way than everything else. This is a click beetle. You might hear them in the summertime. They're found all across the eastern United States, all the way from the southern tip of Florida, all the way up into Canada. And they make a very specific sound they make a very loud click, which is why they're called click beetles. And they will do it if they feel distressed, um, or if they're trying to flip themselves back over. But what they actually do is, I was talking about springs. Um, Rabbits and kangaroos will bounce like a spring whenever they're moving. These guys take the between the abdomen and the thorax, they will snap suddenly, and all of that energy will cause them to just bounce. So it's also very similar to a spring, and it's really wild. And I found a video for you guys to see it. So this is a click beetle, and it is upside down. And after a little while, it'll try to get itself right side up. And if it can't get itself right side up, it will wait for it, flick itself. It's kind of wild. But it's actually the same. It's exactly the same mechanics as a rabbit or a kangaroo. It does it to an extreme because of how small the beetle is. Um, it's able to just pack a whole lot of energy into one single go. And we can actually see how high it goes. I think this is measured in quarter inches or maybe half inches. It shows it here at the end of the video. Yeah, it goes almost 3 whole inches into the air, which is absolutely nuts because that thing is maybe an inch long, maybe, usually less. So that's probably one of the most extreme examples of a click beetle, or a click beetle is a very extreme example of using a sort of spring action to launch yourself. It's very similar to if you were on a springboard, like jumping into a pool, and you bounce, and all of that energy pushes you upward, and now you've got a stronger bounce to it. Now imagine if your legs were springboards, and that was just how you lived and moved around. And that is what kangaroos and rabbits are like. Um, so uh, that is just about all I had for you. So let's do a little bit of review. Um, Animals use saltatory motion for a number of reasons. They use it to evade predators. They use it to pounce on prey. They use it to spring and to jump, to get over obstacles. And they also use it to make themselves less predictable and to travel across rockier, harder to manage terrain. Some creatures do it better than others. Creatures like the rabbit and the kangaroo rely on it entirely for their movement, and other creatures use it only on occasion, like the frog, which uses it to escape from a larger predator and also to sort of make a leaping shot at prey. And probably the most extreme example I can think of a creature using it is this click beetle, which does not have the legs to do it, but instead uses its whole body as a sort of spring action lever. The physics behind saltatory motion is used all the time in our modern day. And there's those, if you've ever seen those very fancy prosthetic legs that people can use sometimes that have the sort of spring action to them. So people can walk. People without legs can run really fast. That actually relies on the exact same kind of physics that, say, a rabbit leaps with, or a kangaroo, or even other creatures like antelopes and deer, which sort of spring over and over again. They all rely on pretty much exactly the same thing, which is taking that energy whenever it comes into your legs, whenever you land, and using it like a spring does to push yourself back up. So I thank you guys for coming to my lesson. And do you guys have any further questions? I don't see any. So thank you guys very much and have a great day.